Hi, this is Tammy Potter, and I'm going to show you how to use the brand new double-sided Mosaic Moments mat to make fabulous pages. So the first thing you're going to need, of course, to make a scrapbook page with the Mosaic Moments system is our mat. The other tools that you will need is a good metal ruler with a non-slip backing, a good Exacto knife or a rolling cutter, and then you'll also need some Dotto removable adhesive or something similar to that. Another thing that we use, of course, is our grid paper. Now, the grid paper isn't a tool exactly, it's a consumable, but if you can see it, we have grid lines all over the grid paper, and we use those to keep everything lined up. So the first cutting technique I'm going to show you is how to cut the photos into 1-inch squares. So I have these two photos, and you can see where I have taken pictures of two sides of the top of a tree, and we're going to make that into a really neat looking part of our page. So when I'm cutting anything on my mat into 1-inch squares, the first thing that I do is I roll a little removable adhesive down the back side. You can kind of say, I want to get a little on every square inch, so you can even use your lines to kind of help you evenly space that. And then I'm going to just line my photo up with my grid lines on my mat, and I'm going to use my ruler to cut each of those 1-inch squares. You'll notice that all your pieces will stay in place on the mat as you cut because they have that adhesive on the back side. So I can just move along here and cut every inch. Each of those thicker lines is a 1-inch square. And then when I'm finished cutting in this direction, I'm going to turn my mat and I'm going to cut in the opposite direction. So even though I'm cutting this apart, again, you'll notice that all the pieces stay in place, and that is simply because of the adhesive that I put on the back side before I lined the photo up on the grid. So once I'm done cutting all of my squares, I'll take my grid paper and I'll simply just start peeling up those pieces, and they have that adhesive already on the back, so I can just line them up using my grid corners on my paper, and I'm just going to kind of peel them up and stick them down every one. That one kind of stuck together. So we're going to just make our little mosaic looking photo by just peeling and sticking. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of room on the page because what I want to do is add another photo just under this tree. I'm going to place this photo here, so I want to leave a little bit of space. I think I'm actually going to do one more row. And next I'll just cut my other tree, and I won't show you that, but I'm going to cut that and put it on here, and I'll show you what the final result looks like at the end of the video. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my cardstock. You'll notice that this picture does not fit the grid, so I'm going to cut a piece of cardstock to be a mat for the photo that is going to fit this, and it's going to need to cover 6 squares by 4 squares. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to just line my paper up with my grid lines. And I'm going to count each of these 1-inch squares. And in this case, it's going to be 4 3/8 inches. So I'm going to say, here's 1, 2, 3, 4 inches plus 3/8. The eighths are really important because the whole system is based on this 1/8 grid. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And then I want to cut it in the opposite direction. So I'm going to just turn my mat. And I'm going to count to cover 6 squares. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus I need 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know that I need to cut it right here. Just line my ruler up and make my cut. Now this mat is going to just fit perfectly on my grid paper. So I'll just move this back over here. Put a little adhesive on the back of it and put it into place on my page. Now I can place my photo on it and just line that up right on that mat. Now, the great thing is this is the first side of our mat, and we've had that for years. But now we have a second side. Now this second side, the wonderful thing about it is that all of the measurements are designed so that they are already include the gaps. So for example, if I want to cut this photo, I can get my little quick glance guide here. And I can first determine how much I want to save of the photo by lining this up. And I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can kind of get a feel for what I'm hoping to get into the picture. So hopefully you can see there's this little black dot on my quick glance guide, and these are the black lines that show me what I want to include when I crop this. So how am I going to crop this? Well, these lines tell me I want to cut this so that it covers 3 squares by 3 squares. So I'm going to make a square out of this. And so I always like to put a little adhesive on the back of my, and then I'm going to line this up. And I'm just going to, first I'm going to cut the horizontal direction. That's horizontal, right? And vertical. That's vertical. So I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to make my vertical cuts first. So I want it to, see here I have 1, 2, 3 squares. Now that's not 3 inches, that's 3 squares. So if I cut right here, maybe I want to move that over just a little bit more. It's going to give me 3 squares that I'm going to cover. So I'm just going to cut right on this line. And I'm going to cut right on this line, because that's the beginning line here. Okay, so that is 3 squares wide. Now I have to determine how high I want it. So I'm going to turn it the opposite direction, or I could just turn my mat. And I'm saying I want it to be 3 squares in the opposite direction. So, and I can use my quick glance guide just to say, okay, I'm lining that up. So this is what I'm going to get here. And I just go ahead and make my cuts again. Okay, and now I have my square that is going to fit perfectly on my grid. So I'm just going to put a little adhesive on each corner. I've already got a little bit in the center. And when I place this, it's going to go right perfectly on my grid, all lined up. So those are the 2 different ways that you can cut. I will finish this page and I'll show you the finished result. But so we can cut our mats, our mosaic grid on the first side, and then on the second side we can cut directly to fit our grid. So So here's the finished page. I've added a few embellishments here, and I've also finished off our tree so you get that full effect. You can find our mat and our grid paper on snapandcrop.com, as well as the tools that you need. And if you like this video, be sure to check out additional videos on our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.